Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're about to take a journey into the ultimate unknown. I'm talking about a hostile, completely alien world that isn't millions of light years away in some other galaxy. It's actually hidden right here on our very own planet. We're going to explore a place where the normal rules of life completely break down. A place of eternal darkness, monstrous hunters, and stunning glowing light shows. So buckle up, because we're diving deep into the ocean.
Picture this, you're descending in a submersible. Specifically, a heavily fortified craft like the Johnson Sea Link. It's built with this massive transparent bubble and seriously reinforced metal just to withstand the incredible forces down there. As we go down, it gets darker and darker. We plunge a full kilometer from the surface. We're now far, far beyond the reach of the sun. Out the window, it's just a giant pitch-black void.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the sheer scale of that darkness. When you break down the data, this giant black void isn't just some tiny niche environment. It's actually larger than all the rest of the world's habitats combined. The vast majority of our planet's living space is completely devoid of sunlight.
And man, is it hostile down there. By the time you reach just 600 feet down, the water outside is at 20 times normal atmospheric pressure. That's a crushing weight. Combine that with temperatures that hover just a few degrees above freezing, and you'd probably think it's completely impossible for anything to survive here, right? Well, as we're about to see, life doesn't just survive in the deep sea, it puts on a spectacular show.
Section 1. The Language of Light. That brings us to our first major survival mechanism. You see, in the absolute darkest place on Earth, light literally equals life. If you're down there in that sub and you turn off the headlights, you won't just see blackness. You'll see an absolute pyrotechnic display. This is bioluminescence, light created biologically by the animals themselves. It's this dazzling chorus of flashing lights reacting to movement. Because this dark habitat is so incredibly massive, scientists actually believe this language of light is the most common form of communication on the entire planet.
So what are they actually saying to each other? Well, nearly all animals down here need to do a few basic things. They use these pulsing, throbbing lights to attract mates, or they'll suddenly flash to repel predators. They send out complex defensive messages. Some even deploy a decoy cloud of luminous glowing ink to confuse attackers. No way, right? We see pulsing squids, and this is truly amazing, newly discovered creatures like the big red comb jelly. That's a creature as big as a football that science is only just beginning to understand. This entire language is still largely a thrilling mystery to us.
But, in the deep ocean, there's a much darker side to this beautiful glowing light. Some creatures use it for a far more sinister purpose. If that shimmering light is saying anything at all, it's whispering, "Come into my mouth, little fish." Okay, let's dive into how this deadly trap actually works. Meet the deep-sea anglerfish. This hunter doesn't waste its energy chasing food around. Instead, it flashes a light in the darkness, suspended on a long rod right in front of its terrifying, murderous teeth. But the crazy part? The fish isn't even making the light itself. That light is generated by glowing bacteria that live permanently inside the fish's lure. A curious squid or fish sees the intriguing glimmer, thinks it might be a snack, moves in close and, snap, game over. It's a deadly, perfectly evolved ambush.
And the anglerfish is just one of the bizarre locals. We have siphonophores. These are creatures that seem to live totally beyond the normal rules of time. They're virtually eternal, repeatedly cloning themselves until they form chains literally longer than a blue whale. To put that in perspective, that's absolutely massive. Then there's the fangtooth, the midnight zone's most voracious hunter. It has the largest teeth for its size of any fish. And its body is covered in pressure sensors that detect the slightest movement in the pitch-black water. Or take the Keohemia comb jelly, drifting like a ghost with gauzy skirts and long retractable tentacles. It is a true alien lineup.
Section 2. Marine snow and mud. As we travel even further down, below the midwater column where all these glowing creatures hunt, we reach the actual bottom. And to survive down here, you have to rely on the weather. Because down here, it snows, but not frozen water. This is marine snow, continuous clouds of drifting organic debris falling slowly from the waters miles above. It's basically a steady rain of leftover food and particles. And a whole variety of delicate filter feeders like jellyfish and deep-sea cucumbers depend entirely on this descending debris just to survive.
But what happens to all the leftovers? Well, the filter feeders catch what they can, but about 1% of that marine snow actually misses them and settles on the seafloor. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the deep sea. Over millions of years, that tiny 1% has accumulated into a layer of mud up to a full kilometer thick.
This vast, muddy, seemingly empty plain literally covers half the surface of our planet.
But hey, it's not empty. It is home to an incredible cast of mud dwellers with wildly different survival strategies. Take the sea toad, a fish with infinite patience and an absolutely enormous mouth. It's lived on this seabed for so long and is so spectacularly lazy that it basically just gave up swimming. Its fins have actually evolved into little feet, allowing it to quite literally shuffle along the mud. Contrast that with the flapjack octopus, which hovers delicately just above the surface, sifting the mud for worms, ready to jet away at the very first sign of danger.
Section 3. Toxic underwater brine lakes.
Okay, if shuffling fish and cloning tube creatures aren't weird enough for you, we have to talk about the absolute climax of deep-sea strangeness. Hidden on the seabed, specifically deep in the Gulf of Mexico, there are literal lakes underwater. Just imagine you're on the ocean floor, surrounded by standard seawater, and suddenly you come across a shoreline. You're looking at a 15-meter-deep pool of brine, a super salty, heavy liquid that pools right there on the ocean floor. It is highly concentrated and highly toxic, yet, incredibly, around the margins of this toxic underwater lake, there's a total profusion of life. Giant mussels pack tightly together and live for over a century, towering over the shrimps and squat lobsters that feed around them. But it's a deadly neighborhood. Scavenging cutthroat eels come to the shores of this lake looking for an easy meal, and some risk diving right into the heavy liquid. If they spend too long inside, they go into toxic shock. Some manage to rise above it and escape, but others aren't so lucky. That incredibly salty brine acts as a preservative, perfectly embalming their bodies. The casualties of decades simply accumulate around the edges of this toxic underwater lake. It's honestly kind of haunting.
Section 4. The Great Vertical Migration.
So we have toxic underwater lakes, glowing predators, and endless mud plains. It feels entirely detached from our sunlit world, doesn't it? But the surface and the deep are actually intimately connected by this staggering number, 1 billion tons. So the crucial point is, that is the sheer weight of sea creatures commuting out of the deep every single day. It's the largest mass migration on Earth, and it plays a massive role in moving carbon out of our atmosphere, which directly impacts our global climate and the air we breathe right here on the surface.
Here's how this massive daily commute actually goes down. At dusk, this huge armada of creatures ascends from the safety of the deep, dark ocean. Throughout the night, they gather near the surface to graze on tiny phytoplankton under the cover of darkness. But they aren't safe. Marine hunters from hundreds of meters below follow them right up to feed on them. Then, as dawn approaches, the threat is imminent. The deadly sunlight threatens to expose them all. So the entire procession frantically flees back down, diving deep into the safety of the crushing, freezing black depths. It's a desperate, high-speed race for survival, repeated every single day.
And that brings us to the most incredible realization of all. The deep ocean represents the vast majority of living space on our planet. We've only just scratched the surface, lighting up mere fractions of a % of this completely alien world. We're seeing immortal clones, glowing traps, and toxic underwater lakes. So I leave you with this. If the largest habitat on Earth is still mostly unexplored, what else is waiting down there in the dark? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.